Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Common Interest. I'm Mitch Hayes.
And I'm Greg Vinogradsky.
And on today's episode, we have a very special, series for you we're starting. We're going to be talking to you about the New Jersey Structural Integrity Bill. A bill that was recently signed into law by Governor Murphy. And Greg was a member of the Legislative Action Committee, which helped push the bill through the New Jersey legislature. So what we want to do for all of our loyal viewers out there is provide some information over the course of the next couple of videos that we have out there for you. And Greg's going to be talking all about it since he was one of the key members in helping it get across the line, right, Greg?
I wouldn't say key member. I was there.
You remember. you were on the field.
Right.
There you go. Help get across that goal line. So let's talk about it from the beginning. What is the bill? What's the purpose?
Yeah, so the purpose is very simple, right? It's to make sure that buildings across New Jersey are structurally safe, right? There's a lot that goes into that, but that's a general kind of objective and purpose behind the whole thing.
Okay. And so overview, like what is in the bill? What's contained in it?
Yeah. So there's two real key components, right? There's structural integrity inspections, and there is reserve study and reserve adequacy. And we'll go into the videos later on into detail about when you need to have these inspections, who needs to do them, when. Same thing with the reserve studies, right? What is an adequate reserve? I mean, this is something that we've been talking about for decades now, about what is adequacy. So this really helps kind of define that in the sense of what's important in the reserve study that needs to actually be funded and when.
Okay. And now, who's the bill impact?
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about, does it affect me, right? That's like the number one question that I've gotten is, this is my condo, this is my community, what does this have to do with me? And it's fairly straightforward. If you are a residential, condo, or co-op, and your building consists of steel, brick, masonry, you are gonna fall under this law. You will have to make sure that you have structural integrity inspections. You will have to make sure that you're adequately funded reserves. So it's really that simple, and a lot of times there's some misconception about whether it is steel or whether it is brick. So obviously that's something you may want to consult with an expert to really find out what your building is made of, because some buildings are made on a podium, so you have like a concrete structure underneath, and then on top of that you might have wooden framing. If you're a wood frame building, this does not apply to you. If you're a commercial building, doesn't apply to you. If you're an apartment complex, doesn't apply to you. If you're mixed commercial and residential, it may apply to you, right? So you may look at your governing documents and consult with an attorney to find out whether you have to actually follow this law. So there's kind of some complications here, but it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, and we'll go into it more in depth as we go through this series. So you said who it includes, but you also talked about who it excludes. Any thoughts as to why there's some exclusions built into this law?
Yeah, well, I think if we had our way, we would probably try to capture as many buildings as possible to make sure that as many buildings are as safe as possible, right? So that's not always realistic for a lot of reasons. But the basic thought process behind why it should be structural or structural steel or concrete or some type of a masonry that needs to have these inspections is because if you have a failure at one of those levels, so just say a crack in your concrete or a steel foundation failure, that could be a potential for a catastrophic loss based on the pressure that comes down on that type of a crack. Right? We saw that in Surfside. We see that all the time where it starts low. A crack might start at the lowest point, and because of the pressure on top, that causes the entire structure to potentially collapse. Whereas if you have some type of a wooden framing, if you have a foundational piece that maybe splinters or cracks for whatever reason or fails, you can potentially replace that or sister that joint, or there's a lot of other ways. I'm not an engineer, but there's ways that you can potentially repair that and avoid a catastrophic loss. And if it does fail, you have those other members to support it up, so it's less likely for the entire structure to collapse. So I think that was the main reason why a lot of the engineers felt that we had to include the concrete and the steel and the brick, and we could potentially leave the wooden frames to the side.
Okay. And so we talked about what's in the bill, who it impacts, and what the purpose overall purpose is.
Yeah.
So when did it start? When do people have to be aware of this bill going into effect?
Yeah, so this is the easiest part of this whole bill. The bill starts now. It's in effect. The governor signed it in early January, and so basically all of the things in the law say that it starts the day that the law is in effect, which is now. So that doesn't mean that you need to go run out and get your inspections right now. It doesn't mean you need to go out and get your reserves up to date right now or have your reserve studies today. But it does mean that you need to know what's in the law to start planning to make sure that you are complying with it. Because if you're out of compliance with the law now, you need to make sure you have a plan for the future so there's no surprises, which is why it's incredibly important for everybody to be educated on this, get as much information as possible to understand whether you do fall under this law and how you can kind of comply with it to make sure that your residents are protected.
And like you said, protection, safety. That seemed to be the name of the bill and what was behind this bill. And so hopefully this starts to help a lot of the communities out and make them safer.
Yeah, hope so.
So stay tuned for more information that we have on this. Check out our podcast that we talked about before this law was actually implemented towards the end of 2023. If you have any questions, reach out to Greg, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.